Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. My name is Funmi Owolabi and I'm the principal attorney. Today's review, we're going to be looking at cookies. I generally like to I'll mention a couple things first. First of all, I see a Canadian flag. I talked a lot about things like geography in other privacy document reviews. Now, one of the features that I never usually get insight into when I do these reviews is geography. Every geography has its own specific privacy legislation. Now, you may have obligations in different geographies depending on where you process personal data. Now, processing is any operation or set of operations on personal data, right? So if you're conducting that in any of the geographies where you provide your products and services, or for any reason, you need to look at your obligations in those countries, right? You may or may not meet the thresholds. Now, that's very important. I only mentioned the Canadian flag because I don't think that we've done any reviews that are exclusive to Canada. I want to manage my preferences quickly. We're not going to look too much on this. I'm just going to opt out, which I always do for every single review. I want to scroll into looking at the products and services. All right, something to do with money, so financial sector. Now, why do I care about the financial sector? Why did I identify that? The data protection laws that influence one's business also take into consideration industry, particularly in the United States. It's not just the United States, but I talk a lot about the United States because that's where I practice. So why I mentioned that is because there's a couple things I've already identified just from the site. One, we've got the Canadian flag, and two, we've identified financial services. Now, I don't know if this is exclusive to Canada. Let me scroll down and see if we can see that. Okay, this one's called Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce website. The name alone suggests that we're looking at Canadian privacy laws here, right? First and foremost. However, that doesn't mean, you can see here it says CIBC US. And because I practice in the US, if they're a financial institution processing personal data in the United States, they may have obligations under federal financial privacy legislation. So when a business is looking at privacy, you're not just looking at where you're geographically located. You're looking at where you process personal data. Let's click it quickly. I want to confirm that US stands for United States. Okay, so it does. We've got a different flag. So let's go back because we're looking at cookies today. So let's scroll up. We didn't do a detailed dive into the preference center. I want to look more into the notice. So they've changed this to Digital Preferences Policy, previously named Cookie Policy. And I guess we'll identify why they've changed the name. Let me give one presumption I can make. A presumption is because cookies are not the only type of tracking technologies that businesses are leveraging now to obtain personal data. So we may see, and I don't know that, we'll see it in their policy, but I think it's important to know that there's increase in the level of sophistication that companies can leverage to understand how their consumers buy and purchase products and services. And those are not exclusive to cookies. Okay, so the digital preference policy explains what tracking technologies are and how we use them. So let's scroll down and see what constitutes a tracking technology here. They've got cookies, pixels, beacons, and web analytic tools, collectively referred to as technologies. And I personally think that this is a very wise approach, given what I just mentioned about tracking technologies not being exclusive to cookies now. And because, okay, I'll give an example, not related to the cookies, but let me give you an example of something I see frequently. You know, when you receive an email marketing to you, it's like, okay, I'll give a very good example. I get emails from this company called Monas. Monas does luggage, okay? So anytime I get an email from them and they're trying to market to me, hey, buy this new luggage, right? If I was to click on one of the emails, Monas probably sends me emails twice a day. They market a lot. I like the emails because I really like their product, so I don't unsubscribe. But let's talk about if I see that they have a new offering, and they have been having lots of different offerings. The luggage, they've been offering different colors. So let's say I see the green luggage and I'm like, oh, I don't really like the black one I currently have. Let me click the green one, right? If I click the green one and it goes to the Monas website, that click could give them information that, hey, Funmi really likes green luggage. So what's going to start happening? There's going to be certain tracking technologies that identify that this individual likes green luggage now. So let's send her more emails about green luggage. And then you start seeing lots and lots of marketing emails saying green luggage, right? And that's just an example. But the emails that I start receiving about the green luggage may not be facilitated based on cookies. It could be different web analytic tools that they've embedded in the green luggage that I went ahead and clicked on. And that is privacy in practice. So let's keep talking about cookies. I think this is a great approach if you are leveraging these a lot. Now, not every business is using pixels and beacons. They don't have the third parties that facilitate this type of activity. Some just have a website, right? So it may not be pertinent to every business, and this is why privacy is so specific. Because what another business is doing may not be what your business is doing. You need to have the insights relevant to your business to maintain your own obligations. So look, we've got the scope here, CIBC.com website, CIBC online banking. I presume this is an app, right? We've got an app. Now, why am I highlighting this? The manner in which the website may process personal data may be different to the manner in which personal data is processed via the application, right? And this particular policy, the digital preference policy, applies to both. So what are we doing as a business? We're looking, one, at the process flow for our website, from the minute data is collected to how it is used to then how it's deleted. We're looking at that from the website perspective. And then we are looking at it from the app perspective. So I'll talk a little bit about this and then let's go back to cookies. There's a term in the data protection space known as privacy by design. Privacy by design ensures that you're looking at privacy from the beginning of creation of any initiative, whether that's a product, service, or system. Now, in designing your app, let's say, for example, you have an application and you've already got your engineers to work on it and they've already designed it and it's about to be deployed into the marketplace. If there are features associated with processing personal data that have not been addressed, then the business could have issues down the line in trying to rectify that situation. In addition to that, you have to ensure that whatever you're demonstrating from a notice perspective to your consumers accurately reflects how processing happens within your app. So it's within a business's interest to ensure that privacy by design is being done at the beginning phases when the scope of work is created, to ensure that you're able to, one, create the app in a privacy compliant manner, but then when you get down to the situation of presenting a notice to your consumers, it reflects what you're doing and then the privacy compliance matches, right? So let's get back to cookies. So let's go to this and then I'm going to see if there's an opportunity to manage my preference. One thing I like to do in these reviews is I like to look at the preference center and align it against what the notice says. So we're just going to manage our preference, okay? Manage digital preferences, okay. According to this, they've got functional cookies, performance, advertising, and social media. So just going to scroll up and verify. Functional, performance, advertising, social media. So you can see the other thing that's really important for businesses to confirm is if anything changes on the site or within the app, updating this language to reflect that. Sometimes things get lost in translation. Businesses are busy trying to deploy different products and solutions, and they forget to ensure that there is a meeting of the minds between the notice and how the platform works. So you're always constantly re-looking at the notices because your products are constantly changing. So although we didn't get into the nitty-gritty of the provisions, I still think it's valuable to see what goes into creating a notice first and foremost, and then the responsibility about obtaining appropriate consent via the consent management platform, because that's a component of your notice every single time. What are you relying on to process the information associated with your tracking technologies? You have to identify that. Now, the legal basis is different geography to geography, which is why I mentioned Canada. But we do know that this organization also provides services in the United States, and there are several privacy legislations on a federal level that influence how processing can be conducted, not exclusive to cookies, but other personal data identifiers. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have comments, leave them below and I'll see you in another review.